I stood amidst a sea of mortarboards, staring at 3 empty chairs where my family should have been. Mom texted that the Super Bowl happens only once a year. Dad said there would be other graduations, but their silence spoke the truth that I was only valuable when I paid, as I celebrated alone. A notification popped up. A new credit line had just been opened in my name. They had spent my credit before I could even dry my tears. My name is Eva Evans, and the folding chair beneath me felt flimsy enough to snap under the weight of my own disappointment. Around me, the air inside the Blue Ridge Evening College auditorium was thick with the smell of cheap hairspray and the nervous sweat of 300 adult learners. It was a cacophony of joy. Families were shouting names, blowing air horns that security had explicitly banned, and waving oversized cardboard cutouts of heads. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, staring straight ahead at the row reserved for guests. Specifically, at 3 empty chairs in the 4th row, just off the center aisle. They were not just empty spaces. They looked like missing teeth in a smile, jagged and wrong. I had saved those seats months ago. I had sent the digital tickets. I had sent reminders. I had even sent a map of the parking lot. For 6 years, I had clawed my way toward this night. The memories of those years were not cinematic montages of studying in a cozy library with lo-fi hip-hop playing in the background. They were gritty, exhausted flashes of reality. I remembered the fluorescent hum of the break room at Harborgate Claims and Risk at 2 a.m, my eyes burning as I tried to memorize statistical models for my business analytics final. I remembered double shifts where I processed insurance claims until my fingers cramped, just to pay for tuition because I refused to take out loans I could not service. I remembered dinners that consisted entirely of peanut butter crackers and lukewarm diet soda from the vending machine because I had 15 minutes between leaving work and starting class. I had missed everything. I missed my cousin's wedding. I missed the neighborhood block parties. I missed every single holiday gathering for half a decade because holiday pay at Harborgate was time and a half. And time and a half meant I could buy textbooks. I had traded my 20s for this piece of paper. My phone buzzed against my thigh, hidden under the black synthetic fabric of my gown. I knew I should not look, but the silence from the 4th row was deafening, and I needed a reason. I slipped the phone out, shielding the screen with my sleeve. It was a text from Mom in the family group chat. We just could not miss the Super Bowl tradition at Aunt Darlene's house. This year is special. You understand. I stared at the glowing screen until the words blurred. The message was casual, breezy, as if she were canceling a coffee date and not missing the culmination of 6 years of blood and sweat. This year is special. The implication hung there, sharp as a paper cut. The game was special. The dip was special. My graduation was just another Tuesday. Eva Evans, the dean's voice boomed over the PA system, distorting slightly. Summa cum laude. I stood up. My legs felt mechanical, like they belonged to someone else. I walked toward the stairs, the tassel of my cap tickling my cheek. Walk, step, shake hands, take the folder. It was a routine I had rehearsed in my head 1,000 times. I stepped into the blinding stage lights. The heat hit me instantly. I reached out, took the diploma cover. It was empty. The actual degree would come in the mail, and shook the dean's hand. He murmured a generic congratulations that he had already said 200 times that night. Smile, Eva, the photographer commanded from the pit. I plastered on the smile. It was the smile I used at Harborgate when a claimant screamed at me over a denied policy. It was professional, polished, and completely hollow. As the flash went off, leaving a purple spot in my vision, my eyes betrayed me. I looked past the camera, past the lights, straight back to the 4th row. The chairs were still empty. Of course they were. A cold, heavy stone settled in my gut as I remembered the last time. When I finished my trade certificate years ago, the seats had been empty then, too. That time, the text had been frantic. Car trouble, radiator blew on the highway. So sorry, baby. I had believed them. I had worried about them. Then, 2 hours later, I had seen the photos on Facebook. Dad holding a rack of ribs, Mom laughing with a beer in her hand, the car perfectly fine in the background of the driveway. They had not broken down. They just had not wanted to come. I walked down the stairs on the other side of the stage, the applause for the next student already drowning out my moment. I found my seat and sat down, the adrenaline crashing out of my system, leaving me cold. My phone buzzed again. I looked down. This time, it was a direct message from Dad. Now that you are going to be working properly, remember to help the family get stable. We have been waiting for you to step up. I read the text twice. Not congratulations, not, we are proud of you, not even a lie about the score of the game. Working properly, as if the double shifts at the insurance firm did not count, as if the years of self-denial were just me playing around. The pattern crystallized in my mind with the clarity of the data sets I analyzed for my degree. They did not see me. They did not see Eva, the daughter who just graduated with highest honors. They did not see the sleepless nights or the vending machine dinners. They looked at me and saw a resource. They saw a credit score that had not been ruined yet. They saw a salary bump. They saw an ATM that was finally coming online. Around me, graduates were hugging their families, weeping with relief and joy. I sat alone in the crowd, clutching the faux leather folder to my chest. I held it tight, my knuckles turning white. I was hugging it like it was a lifeline, like it was the only thing in the world that belonged to me. And in a way, I had won this. I had earned every inch of this paper. But as I sat there, surrounded by celebration, I felt the crushing weight of a loss I was only just beginning to understand. I had my degree, but I had lost the last shred of hope that my family would ever show up for me unless I was paying for the ticket. The heavy metal door of the auditorium slammed shut behind me, cutting off the applause and the muffled sound of the brass band playing a celebratory march. The silence of the parking lot was instant and aggressive. The wind in the Blue Ridge foothills did not blow. It bit. It whipped around the corner of the brick building and cut right through the thin, cheap polyester of my graduation gown, like it was not even there. I shivered, not just from the cold, but from the adrenaline crash that was leaving my hands shaking. I walked to my 10-year-old sedan, the one with the mismatched bumper I had never fixed because the money always went somewhere else. I leaned against the driver's side door, fumbling for my keys, but instead, I unlocked my phone again. The screen was bright in the darkness. I stared at the contact named Mom. My thumb hovered over the call button. I knew I should just get in the car and drive. I knew calling them would not fix the 3 empty chairs inside. But the little girl inside me, the one who still desperately wanted to believe there was a valid reason, pressed the icon. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up, telling myself they were too busy cheering for a touchdown to answer, when the line connected. Hello? Mom's voice was breathless, loud. Behind her, I could hear the distinct, chaotic roar of a football game on a massive television. There was laughter, the clinking of glass bottles, and someone shouting about a flag on the play. It sounded warm. It sounded alive. It sounded like a party where everyone was welcome except me. You did not come, I said. My voice was small, snatched away by the wind before it could even fully form. Oh, Eva, honey? Her tone shifted instantly, putting on that sugary, performative sweetness she used when she was talking to neighbors or trying to return an item without a receipt. Look, you know how it is. It is tradition. Aunt Darlene went all out on the nachos this year. We just could not break the streak. You understand, right? I understand that I graduated 5 minutes ago, I said, my voice hardening. I understand that I sent you the date 6 months ago. I understand that I am standing in a freezing parking lot, holding a diploma you promised you would be here to see. Don't be like that, she said, the sweetness evaporating into a sharp edge of annoyance. We are celebrating you in spirit. We toasted you when the game started. Besides, you know your father gets anxious in crowds. He goes to the stadium for tailgates, I countered. He handles crowds fine when there is beer involved. Am I even on your calendar, Mom? Or am I just a reminder on your phone that pops up when a bill is due? There was a rustling sound on the other end, the phone being bobbled or passed. Then Dad's voice boomed through the speaker, deeper and rougher than Mom's. "Ava, stop it," he snapped. "Do not ruin the night. We are having a good time. Do not make this about you." My graduation. I choked out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. How is my graduation not about me? "It is just a piece of paper," Dad said. The words hung in the cold night air, heavier than the wind, heavier than the silence. "It is just paper," he repeated, dismissing 6 years of double shifts, of missed meals, of exhaustion so deep it felt like it lived in my marrow. "You got the degree, good for you, but do not act like you just cured cancer. It is paper. Now let your mother enjoy the halftime show." I stopped breathing for a second. The wind howled around me, but inside my head, it was perfectly quiet. That was it. That was the truth I had been running from my entire adult life. To them, my achievements were not milestones. They were administrative tasks. My struggles were not noble. They were invisible. They did not see the daughter. They saw the utility. I did not respond. I just stood there, clutching the phone, letting the silence stretch out. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The silence on the line grew awkward. They were used to me apologizing. They were used to me begging for forgiveness for being upset. They were waiting for me to fold, to say I am sorry, have fun, love you. But I did not say anything. "Ava?" Mom's voice came back on the line, sounding slightly unsettled by the lack of groveling. "Ava, are you there?" I still said nothing. "Well," she cleared her throat, clearly eager to get off the phone but sensing the tension. "Look, since we are talking, your father and I were looking at the heating bill for next month, and with the party costs and everything, we are running a little short for the end of the month, since you are going to be getting that raise soon." The audacity was breathtaking. It was almost impressive in its absolute lack of shame. Not 5 minutes after telling me my achievement was meaningless, they were already calculating the return on investment. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I looked at the screen, at the timer counting up the seconds of my life I was wasting on this conversation. I did not say goodbye. I did not scream. I simply pressed the red button. The connection severed. The noise of the party vanished, leaving me alone with the wind. But strangely, as I stood there, the cold did not feel as biting anymore. A weird kind of heat was blooming in my chest. It was not anger, exactly. It was clarity. They did not miss my graduation because of a game. They missed it because they did not care. And they had not just missed tonight. They had missed me when I was 18 and scared. They had missed me when I was 22 and broke. They had missed every single version of me that did not come with a checkbook attached. I got into my car and slammed the door, sealing myself inside the quiet safety of the vehicle. I tossed the diploma onto the passenger seat. Then, I picked up my phone again. I opened a travel app I had downloaded months ago just to look at pictures of places I could never afford to go. I had saved a folder called Someday. I tapped on it. The first image was of a place called the Snowlark Wellness Lodge. It was a 3-hour drive north, deep in the mountains. Far away from football games and cell reception and guilt trips. It was expensive. 2 nights there cost as much as I usually spent on groceries for 2 months. My thumb hovered over the Book Now button, the old Eva, the one who had been trained to be a financial crutch, screamed in my head, "That is selfish. That is irresponsible. What if Dad needs blood pressure medication? What if the water heater breaks?" "It is just paper," I whispered to the empty car. If my degree was just paper, then their bills were just paper too. I selected the dates. Check-in. Tonight. Check-out. Thursday. I did not stop there. I scrolled down to the add-ons: massage therapy, guided meditation, private cabin upgrade. I tapped the box for the Reclaim Your Peace therapy package. It was an extra $400. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud and fast. This was terrifying. Spending money on myself felt like a crime. It felt like stealing. But then I looked at the passenger seat. at the fake leather folder lying in the shadows. "This is money I earned," I said aloud, testing the weight of the words. "This is not money I owe anyone." I entered my credit card details. I hit confirm, booking successful. The notification flashed green on my screen. A confirmation email dinged in my inbox. I put the car in gear. I did not look back at the auditorium. I did not look at the text message that just came through from Mom, probably asking if the call dropped or repeating the request for cash. I turned on the headlights, and for the first time in my life, I drove in the opposite direction of home. I was done paying a subscription fee for a family that never logged in. I was done buying love that was never in stock. I was going to Snowlark, and I was going to be selfish. It was the first gift I had ever given myself, and it tasted like freedom. The silence of the Snowlark Wellness Lodge was expensive. It was a curated silence, smelling of cedarwood and eucalyptus, designed to make you forget that the outside world existed. I was sitting in a plush armchair facing a wall of glass that looked out over a darkened pine forest. A cup of herbal tea steaming in my hands, for the first time in 6 years. I did not have a textbook open on my lap. I did not have a spreadsheet floating behind my eyes. I was just Eva, existing in a moment I had paid for with my own money. Then the phone on the side table buzzed. It was a short, sharp vibration against the wood. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was probably just a spam email or a weather alert, but then it buzzed again and again. And a fourth time, long and insistent, like someone knocking on a door they knew you were hiding behind. I picked it up. The screen lit up the dim room, shattering the peaceful ambiance. Mom. "Eva, are you there? We are starving here. Can you transfer 50 for pizza? The game is going into overtime." Dad. "Also, I left some papers on the kitchen counter. Need you to sign them next time you come over. Just standard insurance updates for the house." Dylan. "Yo, Ev. Emergency. Lost my wallet at the gym. Need $100 for gas and food. Send it ASAP." I stared at the messages. The audacity was so thick it was almost physical. I had just driven 3 hours into the mountains to escape them, and here they were. Digital ghosts haunting my pocket. Dylan saying he lost his wallet at the gym was laughable. Dylan had not seen the inside of a gym since high school. And Dad asking me to sign papers? He usually handled all the household administration with a secretive, territorial grip. I was typing a reply, something angry, something defensive, when a different name popped up at the top of my notifications. Maya Carter. Do not reply to them. Maya Carter. Eva. Seriously, put the phone down. Actually, no, don't put it down. Open Instagram, now. Maya was my lifeline. She was the only person who knew the full extent of the financial drain my family placed on me. If she was using all caps, it was not a suggestion. It was a command. My stomach twisted. I switched apps. My thumb hovering over the colorful icon, I tapped it. The first thing on my feed was a post from my mother. It had been posted 2 hours ago. The photo was high definition, bright and chaotic. It showed my mother, father, and Dylan squeezed around a table loaded with food. There were trays of wings, towers of nachos, and expensive-looking imported beers. My mother was beaming, her face flushed with excitement, wearing a jersey that cost more than my textbooks. The caption read, "Family is everything. Nothing beats Super Bowl Sunday with the crew. Blessed tradition." I looked at the timestamp, 2 hours ago. That was exactly when I was walking across the stage, while I was shaking the dean's hand, wondering if they were thinking of me. They were posing for selfies, while I was scanning the crowd for their faces. They were uploading proof of their indifference. I scrolled to the right. Dylan had posted a story. I tapped the ring around his profile picture. Video played. It was shaky, loud, filmed in a vertical portrait mode. Dylan was holding up a betting slip with one hand and a brand new, authentic team jersey with the other. He yelled into the camera, "Easy money this week. Who says you cannot beat the spread? Let's go." I paused the video. I zoomed in. He was wearing the jersey. The tags were still on the table behind him. He had not lost his wallet. He had spent his money on gambling and gear, and now he wanted me to backfill the deficit. My hands started to shake, but not from the cold this time. It was a cold, hard rage. They were lying to me. They were not just ignoring me. They were actively extracting resources from me while lying about where those resources were going. A new text from Maya appeared. Maya Carter. I saw Dylan's story. He is not at the gym. Eva, I have a bad feeling. You need to check your credit report. Right now. Use that free tracker app. I frowned. Why? I typed back. They just want cash. Maya Carter. Just check it. Please. For me. I closed the social media apps. The peaceful view of the pine forest felt mocking now. I opened the credit monitoring app I had installed years ago when I started my credit building journey. It usually sat dormant. A boring app for a boring life. I logged in. The Face ID spun for a second before the dashboard loaded. My score had dropped. It had dropped 40 points since I last checked a month ago. I tapped on the Alerts tab. The list that populated made the air leave my lungs. Hard inquiry. Quick Cash Loans Incorporated. Yesterday. Hard inquiry. Best Buy Electronics. 2 days ago. New account opened. Department store credit card. 3 days ago. I clicked on the details for the credit card. The credit limit was $5,000. The current balance was already $4,800. I scrolled down to the contact information associated with the application. Applicant. Eva Marie Evans. Mailing address. 1402. Oak Street. That was my parents' house. I sat very still. The tea on the table beside me had gone cold. The silence in the room was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, pressing in on my eardrums. Dad's text about signing papers suddenly took on a sinister new light. Just standard insurance updates. Or was it a co-signer agreement? Or was it a retroactive permission slip for something they had already done? I did not cry. I think I was too shocked to cry. Instead, a different part of my brain woke up. It was the part of me that had just earned a degree in business analytics with summa cum laude honors. It was the part of me that dealt with facts, data, and patterns. I took a screenshot of the credit report. I took a screenshot of the inquiry dates. I switched back to Instagram. I took a screenshot of Mom's post with the timestamp visible. I screen recorded Dylan's story, capturing the betting slip and the jersey. I screenshot the text messages asking for money. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started a new file. I named it Timeline of Events. February 8th. 2 p.m. Hard inquiry from electronics store. February 8th, 4 p.m. Mom texts saying they cannot make graduation due to car trouble. Lie 1. February 10th, 7 p.m. Graduation ceremony. Mom posts party photo. February 10th, 9 p.m. Dylan requests money for lost wallet while posting gambling wins. February 10th, 9:15 p.m. Discovery of unauthorized credit card opened at parents' address. I was building a case. I did not know who I was building it for yet. The police, a lawyer, or just my own sanity. But I was documenting everything. The emotional haze that usually clouded my judgment when it came to my family was evaporating. This was not a family dynamic. This was a financial crime. They had used my social security number. They had forged my signature. They had directed the mail to their house so I would not see the bills. They had planned this. This was not an accident. This was a strategy. My phone buzzed again. A new notification from the credit monitoring app. I stared at it, my finger hovering, terrified of what it would say. New inquiry alert. Luxury Home Furnishings has requested a credit check for an installment plan. I felt a wave of nausea. Luxury Home Furnishings. That was the expensive store near the mall where Mom liked to window shop for leather sectionals. They were not just buying groceries. They were not just covering bills. They were furnishing their living room with my future. They were stripping the copper wire out of my life to buy themselves comfort. I realized then that the text asking for $50 for pizza was a distraction. It was a test to see if I was still responsive, still pliable. While I was agonizing over whether to send them petty cash, they were signing my name on a financing contract for thousands of dollars. I set the phone down on the table. My hand was steady now. The trembling had stopped. I looked out at the dark forest. Somewhere out there, an owl hooted. It was a lonely sound, but it felt right. I was alone. But for the first time, I realized that being alone was safer than being with them. They thought I was just Eva, the pushover. They thought I was just the daughter who worked hard and paid up. They did not realize that they had just stolen from a data analyst who knew exactly how to track a paper trail. I picked up the phone one last time. I did not text Mom. I did not text Dad. I did not text Dylan. I texted Maya. You were right. They stole my identity. I am going to burn it all down. I locked the screen. The game was over. The investigation had begun. The wooden desk in my cabin at Snowlark Lodge became my war room. The relaxing scent of cedar was replaced by the metallic tang of adrenaline and the hum of my laptop cooling fan working overtime. I was not here to heal anymore. I was here to hunt. Maya did not waste time. Within an hour of my text, she had connected me with 2 contacts from her own firm's crisis management roster. The first was Noah Grayson, a civil attorney who specialized in familial identity fraud. The second was Renee Walsh, a forensic accountant who could find a missing penny in a chaotic ledger. I did not sleep that first night. Instead, I executed the 3-step lockdown protocol Renee had emailed me. Step 1 was the freeze. I logged into Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. My fingers flew across the keyboard, entering my social security number and date of birth with a detachment that frightened me. I clicked the freeze access button on all 3 portals. It felt like slamming a heavy iron gate shut. No one, not even me, could open a new line of credit without a PIN number that only I possessed. Step 2 was the password purge. I knew my mother used a variation of her first pet's name and the year she was born for everything. I also knew she had guessed my passwords years ago because I used to be sentimental. I changed my email, my banking, my student loan portal, and my social media logins to randomized strings of 20 characters generated by a security manager. Step 3 was the most critical, according to Noah. I revoked all trusted devices and moved my 2-factor authentication to an authenticator app on my new phone. My parents often used the excuse of tech trouble to get me to read them verification codes sent to my old number. That door was now welded shut. By sunrise on Tuesday, I was exhausted, but I was secure. That was when the real work began. Renee had sent me a template for what she called a causality ledger. She told me that fraud is rarely random. It is a story told in numbers. I opened a fresh spreadsheet. I created 3 columns. Column A was labeled the ask. Column B was labeled the event. Column C was labeled the theft. I started inputting the data I had screenshotted, treating my own life like a business case study. Row 1, the ask. Text from Mom, January 15th, asking for $200 for emergency car repairs. The event. Facebook photo of Dad at a steakhouse, January 16th. The theft. Credit inquiry from a payday loan service, January 15th, row 2, the ask. Dad asking if I had received my bonus yet. February 1st, the event. No specific event, but a lack of communication for 3 days following my answer of no. The theft. Attempted login to my primary checking account, February 2nd, from an IP address in my parents' town. It was a sickening game of connect the dots. Every time they reached out to me with a smile or a sob story, they were simultaneously trying to pry open my financial windows. Noah called me at 10 in the morning. His voice was gravelly and devoid of pity, which was exactly what I needed. Listen to me closely, Eva, he said. The law does not care that they missed your graduation. The law does not care that your feelings are hurt. The judge is not a therapist. If you want to stop this, you have to stop acting like a daughter and start acting like a victim of a crime. I am listening, I said, my pen hovering over my notebook. You need to link the physical goods to the digital fraud, Noah instructed. They opened credit lines. What did they buy? Where was it shipped? Who signed for the delivery? That is your smoking gun. We need to prove benefit. If the card is in your name, but the 70-inch television is in their living room, that is conversion of assets. I went back to the credit report. I focused on the large inquiry from Luxury Home Furnishings. It was a financing plan for $4,000. I called the store. I put on my best confused customer voice. I gave them the account number from the credit report and my social security number for verification. I am so sorry. I told the sales representative, I am looking at my statement and I see a charge for the 10th, but I was out of town for my graduation. Can you tell me exactly what was purchased? I just want to make sure the delivery is scheduled correctly. Certainly. Ms. Evans, the clerk said, cheerful and oblivious. That was the Super Bowl bundle, the 85-inch OLED screen and the surround sound system. It was scheduled for express delivery on the morning of the 11th. Oh, it looks like it was already delivered and signed for. Signed for by whom? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. Let me pull up the digital signature, the clerk said. It looks like a Dylan Evans. I closed my eyes. Dylan. And just for my records, I pressed, keeping my voice steady. Was there a referral code used? I know my brother mentioned he might get points for it. Yes, actually, the clerk confirmed. The account was opened with a referral email, dashboy-80-8@gmail.com. He got a $50 store credit for referring you. The air left the room. It was not just Mom and Dad desperate for a new TV. It was Dylan. My brother had referred his own sister's stolen identity to a store to get a $50 credit. He had sold me out for the price of a video game. That was the moment the last tether snapped. I thanked the clerk and hung up. I added the information to the spreadsheet. The theft. $4,000 home theater system. The evidence. Signed for by Dylan Evans. Referral credit to Dylan Evans. Delivered to parents' address during the graduation ceremony they skipped. I forwarded the entire file to Noah and Renee. Draft the letter, I typed. 2 hours later. Noah sent me the PDF. It was beautiful in its brutality. It was a formal notice of cease and desist and a notification of fraud investigation. It stated clearly that any further attempt to access my credit, use my identity, or contact me regarding financial matters would be considered harassment and added to the police file I was preparing to open. I sent it via email to all three of them. I also sent it via certified mail to the house. I sat back and watched the clock. It took 19 minutes. My phone rang. It was Mom. I did not answer. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Then Dad called. Then Dylan. Finally. A voicemail notification popped up. I pressed play, putting the phone on speaker so I could record it on my laptop as backup evidence. Ava! Mom's voice cracked through the speaker. Wet and trembling. She was crying. The kind of heavy, gasping sobs that used to make me drop everything to comfort her. Ava, what is this letter? A lawyer? Are you insane? We are your family. We were just trying to get the house nice for when you visit. How can you be so cruel? We gave you life. You are overreacting. Baby, please, just pick up the phone. We can fix this. Don't do this to us. I listened to the sobbing. I listened to the guilt tripping. I listened to the weaponized emotion that had controlled me for 24 years, and I felt nothing. No, that was not true. I felt the cool, clean satisfaction of a balanced equation. I looked at my spreadsheet. The numbers did not lie. The timestamps did not lie. Her tears were just another attempt to overdraft an account that had finally been closed. I saved the recording. I labeled it evidence. Harassment item 1. I did not call back. I poured myself another cup of tea and watched the sun set over the mountains. Knowing that down in the valley, the panic was just beginning. They were realizing that the ATM was not just out of order, it was under new management. The glowing red digits on my bedside clock read 3:14 in the morning when the pounding started. It was not a knock. It was a rhythmic, heavy thudding that shook the frame of my apartment door, vibrating through the cheap drywall of the hallway. In the old days, that sound would have sent me into a panic attack. I would have scrambled out of bed, heart racing, terrified that something terrible had happened. that someone was hurt, that I was needed, but I was not that Eva anymore. That Eva had died in a parking lot outside a graduation hall. I slid out of bed, my movements deliberate and silent. I did not turn on the lights. I pulled on my robe and picked up my phone. I walked to the door, my bare feet making no sound on the laminate floor. I pressed my eye to the peephole. The fisheye lens distorted them, but the threat was unmistakable. My father was the one pounding, his fist raised like a hammer. He looked disheveled. His face flushed a mottled red that even the dim hallway light could not hide. Behind him stood my mother, clutching her purse to her chest, trembling in a performance of frailty that would have won an award. And behind them both was Dylan, phone raised, the flashlight blindingly bright, recording the entire scene. They were staging a scene. "Ava!" Dad bellowed, his voice echoing in the quiet corridor. "Open this door. We know you are in there. You cannot hide our property forever." I frowned. Our property? I owned nothing of theirs. I had moved out 3 years ago with 2 suitcases and a box of books. I heard the jingle of keys and the heavy footsteps of the building superintendent. "Mr. Henderson," coming up the stairs. "Mr. Henderson," Dylan's voice pitched up, whining and desperate. "Thank God. She has locked us out. She is holding Mom's medication and some family heirlooms inside. We just need to get them. She is having a mental breakdown or something." It was a lie so bold, so calculated. It almost commanded respect. They were trying to use the superintendent to breach my fortress. They wanted him to unlock the door for them. I stepped back from the door. I did not unlock it. I did not yell back. I dialed the police. 911. What is your emergency? "My name is Eva Evans," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the terror that my body wanted to feel. "I am at 505 West Maple. There are 3 individuals attempting to force entry into my apartment. They are harassing me and claiming false ownership of the property. I have a cease and desist order against them that was mailed yesterday. I need an officer to remove them. Are you in immediate danger, ma'am? Do they have weapons?" "They are my family," I said, the word tasting like ash. "But they are aggressive, and I am alone. Officers are on the way. Stay inside. Do not open the door." I hung up and switched to the voice recorder app. I walked back to the door, pressing the phone against the wood. Outside, the performance was escalating. "Come on, buddy," Dad was saying to Mr. Henderson. "Just use the master key. Her mother is sick. We just need to get the bag she stole." "I cannot do that, sir," Mr. Henderson said, sounding tired and annoyed. "If she is not answering, I cannot let you in without a warrant or a medical emergency. You need to lower your voices. It is 3 a.m. "She is stealing from us," Dylan shouted. "You are aiding a thief." "Do you want to be on camera aiding a thief?" "Open the door. Ava." Dad hammered the wood again, harder this time. The frame rattled. "I will tell everyone what kind of daughter you are. You think you are better than us because you got some fancy piece of paper? You are nothing. You are ungrateful trash. We fed you. We clothed you." I watched the audio waveforms spike on my screen. Threats, defamation, attempted breaking and entering. "Don't act like you are so rich just because you ran away," Dylan sneered, his voice closer to the door now. "You owe us. That money is ours." There it was, the truth, stripped of the sick mother lie. That money is ours. I waited. I did not scream, "Go away." I did not cry. I stood in the dark, a statue of resistance, letting them exhaust themselves against the silence. 5 minutes later, the hallway was bathed in blue flickering light. I heard the heavy boots of the police officers coming up the stairs. "Police, step away from the door." The pounding stopped instantly. "Officers, thank God," Mom's voice wailed, switching instantly to victim mode. "Our daughter, she is having an episode. We are just trying to help her." "Step back, ma'am," a stern voice commanded. "Sir, put the phone down. Now." I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door just enough to leave the chain on. Peering out into the bright hallway, 2 officers stood there. One had Dad backed against the wall. The other was talking to Mr. Henderson. "Mrs. Evans?" the officer nearest the door asked. "Yes," I said. I did not look at my parents. I looked only at the badge. "I am Eva. Your family says you have their property," the officer said, though his tone suggested he already doubted them. "They are lying," I said calmly. I reached to the small entry table where I had placed a manila folder the moment I heard the knocking. I slid it through the crack in the door. "This is a copy of the cease and desist letter sent by my attorney, Noah Grayson, yesterday regarding financial fraud and identity theft committed by these 3 individuals. This is a log of the credit accounts they opened in my name without my consent, and I have an audio recording of them admitting they are here for money, not medication." The officer took the folder. He opened it, shining his flashlight on the legal letterhead. He looked at the dates. He looked at the credit report screenshots. He looked up at my father, his expression hardening. "This looks like a civil matter that is turning criminal, sir," the officer said. "You are trespassing. You need to leave the premises immediately." "She is my daughter," Dad sputtered, his face turning from red to purple. "I have rights." "You have the right to remain silent if you don't want a harassment charge," the officer said sharply. "Walk away. Now." Dylan tried to keep filming, holding the phone at his hip. "This is police brutality. You are kicking out a worried family. Turn the phone off, son, or I will confiscate it as evidence of stalking," the officer warned. Dylan lowered the phone. For the first time, he looked scared. I watched them go. Mom was sobbing real tears now, realizing the performance had failed. Dad looked back at me one last time, his eyes full of a hate I had never let myself see before. He looked at me like I was a broken appliance, something that used to work and was now useless to him. "You are dead to us," he hissed as the officer shoved him toward the stairs. "I know," I whispered. The officer turned back to me after they were gone. "We will file a report, Ms. Evans, with this paperwork. You have enough for a temporary restraining order. I suggest you file it first thing in the morning." "I will," I said. "Thank you." I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I slid the chain back into place. The silence returned, but it was different now. It wasn't the terrified silence of a victim hiding in the dark. It was the silence of a castle after the siege has been broken. I walked into my living room and turned on the lamp. I pulled out the metal filing cabinet I kept under my desk. I opened the drawer labeled Family. It was full. 6 years of receipts. Emergency loan for Mom, never repaid. Co-signed lease for Dylan, default paid by me. Bail money for Dad's misunderstanding, never repaid. Screenshots of texts demanding cash. The new credit report. The cease and desist. I ran my fingers over the tabs. For years, I had looked at this drawer with dread. I had looked at it as a catalog of my failures as a daughter, proof that I could never give enough. But tonight, standing in the quiet of 4 a.m., I saw it for what it was. It was not a relationship. It was a ledger, and I was the only one who had ever made a deposit. My hands were steady. My heart was slow. I realized then that I had spent my entire life being afraid of losing them. I was afraid of their anger, afraid of their silence, afraid of the 3 empty chairs. But the chairs had always been empty. The anger had always been there, just waiting for the check to bounce. I was not afraid anymore because they had nothing left to take. They had taken my money, my credit, and my graduation. But they could not take my peace. Not anymore. I closed the drawer with a solid, metallic click. It sounded like a cell door slamming shut. I went back to bed, and for the first time in 24 years, I fell asleep instantly. The fluorescent lights of Harborgate Claims and Risk hummed with a frequency that usually gave me a headache by noon. But today, after the 3 a.m. police visit, the sound felt like a drill boring directly into my temple. I was staring at a spreadsheet of actuarial tables, trying to force the numbers to make sense. When my desk phone rang, it was not an external client. The caller ID read, Internal, Human Resources. I picked up the receiver, assuming it was about the new health insurance enrollment period. Eva Evans speaking. Hi, Eva. This is Sarah from payroll. The voice on the other end was cheerful, efficient. I just wanted to call and verbally confirm the change to your direct deposit information before we process the next cycle. We flagged it because the new bank is out of state, and policy requires a verbal on any routing number changes within 48 hours of payday. My hand froze on my mouse. The cursor hovered over a cell labeled Risk Probability. I am sorry, Sarah, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper so my cubicle neighbor would not hear. I did not request a change to my direct deposit. There was a pause on the line. The cheerful typing sound in the background stopped. You did not? Sarah's tone shifted from administrative to alert. We received an email request yesterday afternoon with a completed voided check form attached. It came from your personal email address. Read me the email address, I said. My stomach was doing that familiar flip-flop, the one that used to mean Dad is mad, but now meant theft in progress. It is eva.evans@gmail.com, she read. That is my email, I said, confused. Then, the training Renee had given me kicked in. Wait, Sarah, please look closely at the spelling. Is it exactly my name? EVA.EVANS, Sarah spelled out slowly. Then she paused. Oh, that is weird. There is an extra S at the end of Evans. Eva.Evans. That is not me, I said firmly. Do not process that change. That is a fraudulent attempt to divert my salary. Okay, I am flagging it immediately, Sarah said, her voice tight. But Eva, to submit this form, they had to bypass the two-step verification on the employee portal to download the request sheet. A code was sent to the mobile number on file ending in 4492. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of my desk. 4492. That was not my current cell number. It was a prepaid flip phone I had bought 5 years ago when I started night school. My mother had insisted on keeping it in her kitchen drawer, just in case you lose yours, or we have an emergency and need a spare line. I had forgotten it even existed. I had forgotten I had listed it as a backup contact method in the Harborgate system back when I was an intern. They had not just guessed a password. They had dug up a physical key I had given them half a decade ago. They had turned on that dusty phone, waited for the code, and used it to try and reroute my entire livelihood into their pockets. Lock the account, I told Sarah. I am coming down to your office now. I walked through the rows of cubicles. People were drinking coffee, complaining about the weather, planning their weekends. They looked so safe. They did not have to worry that the people who raised them were currently trying to intercept their paycheck to buy a surround sound system. In Sarah's office, we looked at the voided check they had submitted. It was a digital bank account, one of those fintech apps that let you open an account in seconds. The name on the account was D. Evans, Dillon. They did not just want to borrow money, I said, staring at the screen. They wanted to turn off the faucet and point the hose at their house. We need to involve IT security, Sarah said gently, and probably legal. For a split second, I felt a wave of hot, suffocating shame. I wanted to beg her not to. I wanted to hide under the desk. What will the company think? They will think I am messy. They will think I come from trash. Professional people do not have families who commit wire fraud. Then I remembered the police officer from last night. I remembered the ledger in my filing cabinet. Do it, I said. And I need a copy of that email and the IP address it was sent from for my lawyer. I did not look down. I did not apologize. I stood there while the head of security came in. I explained the situation clearly. My family is attempting identity theft. I have taken legal action. They are targeting my employment to bypass my credit freeze. The head of security, a stern man named Miller, who usually terrified the interns, looked at me with something that was not pity. It was respect. We will blacklist their IP range, Miller said. We will put a verbal-only lock on your file. Nothing changes unless you are standing in this room with a photo ID. And Ava, Good catch. I walked back to my desk, but the air felt different. Harbor Gate was compromised. Not the system. The system was secure now, but the sanctity of the place. My family knew where I worked. They knew my schedule. They knew how to mimic my email. I opened my browser. I went to the internal job board, then closed it. No. A transfer within the building was not enough. They would still know where to find me. I opened an external job site. I typed in Senior Data Analyst. I filtered by location. Nationwide. I was not running away. Running away is what you do when you are scared. This was a strategic relocation. I was outgrowing the container they had tried to keep me in. I needed a new city, a new skyline, and a security badge they had never seen. I uploaded my resume. I hit apply on a listing for a firm called Crescent Ridge Analytics. The salary range was 40% higher than what I made now. Click. I felt a strange sense of lightness. I was cutting the cords, one by one. The umbilical cord had been severed years ago. Now I was cutting the financial one, the geographic one, the emotional one. Just as I was packing up my bag to leave for the day, I had decided to leave early, to go meet with Noah. An intern walked up to my desk. He looked nervous, holding a plain white envelope. "This was left at the front desk for you," he said. "No stamp. Someone just dropped it off." I took it. My name was scrawled on the front in handwriting I recognized instantly. It was my mother's jagged, frantic script. I opened it right there. I did not care who saw. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. To the management of Harbor Gate. It began, "We are writing to inform you that your employee, Ava Evans, is an unstable individual who has abandoned her sick mother and stolen family funds. She is a liar and cannot be trusted with sensitive company data. We are preparing to sue her for elder abuse. You should know who you are employing." It was signed, "A Concerned Family." I read it twice. The old Ava would have crumpled. The old Ava would have rushed to Sarah's office, weeping, trying to explain, terrified of being fired. But the new Ava saw it for what it was. It was a desperate flare fired from a sinking ship. They knew they could not get my money anymore. The credit cards were frozen. The bank accounts were locked. The paycheck diversion had failed. So now, they were trying to destroy the engine that produced the money. If they could not harvest the crop, they wanted to salt the earth. I folded the letter neatly. I did not shred it. I put it in my bag. "Is everything okay?" the intern asked, eyeing my expression. "Everything is clarifying," I said. I walked out of the building. I was going to give this letter to Noah. It was not a death sentence for my career. It was the final nail in the coffin of their defense. They had just committed libel and tortious interference with a contract. They wanted to play corporate hardball? Fine. I had just finished a degree in business. I knew exactly how to audit a failing enterprise. And the Evans Family Trust was about to be liquidated. The offer letter from Crescent Ridge Analytics arrived in my inbox on a Tuesday afternoon, glowing with the promise of a life I had only ever observed from a distance. I read the numbers 3 times to make sure I was not hallucinating. The base salary was nearly double what I was making at Harbor Gate. There was a relocation package. There was a signing bonus of $10,000. $10,000. That was the exact amount of credit card debt my family had racked up in my name before I froze everything. It felt like the universe was balancing the ledger. I signed the digital contract within 10 minutes. I did not ask for permission. I did not worry about leaving my team behind. I was done being the loyal soldier in a war I was losing. The move was surgical. I did not tell my landlord I was leaving until the legal minimum notice period required. I did not tell my neighbors. I certainly did not tell my family. Packing my apartment took less than 4 hours. That was the saddest and most liberating realization of the whole process. I had 8 boxes. That was it. When you spend your entire adult life waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for a crisis that demands all your resources, you do not accumulate things. You do not buy nice furniture or heavy books or delicate art. You keep your life portable. You keep your bags packed mentally. I loaded my sedan, which I had finally taken to a mechanic to get fixed with my own money. And I drove. As the city limits of my hometown faded in the rearview mirror, I expected to feel guilt. I expected the old programming to kick in. The voice of my mother crying about abandonment, but the highway stretched out before me, gray and open, and the only thing I felt was the vibration of the steering wheel. I was not running away from home. I was driving toward it for the first time. My new apartment in the city was bright. It had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a skyline of steel and glass. I bought a velvet sofa. I bought a rug that served no purpose other than looking beautiful. I bought a coffee maker that cost more than $20. One evening, about 2 weeks after I settled in, Maya came to visit. We were sitting on my new balcony, drinking wine that did not come from a box. "You look different," she said, studying my face. "You look like you actually sleep." "I do," I said. "I sleep like the dead." "You should write about it," Maya said suddenly. "Not the legal stuff, not the fraud, the feeling, the chairs." "I cannot," I said, swirling the wine. "They will find it. They will say I am airing dirty laundry." "Let them," Maya challenged. "Post it anonymously, change the names, but get it out of you. It is poison. Eva, you have to spit it out." That night, I opened my laptop. I did not write a legal brief. I wrote a story. I titled it 3 Empty Chairs. I wrote about the graduation. I wrote about the text messages. I wrote about the cold pizza and the warm Super Bowl party I wasn't invited to. I wrote about the realization that I was not a daughter, but a financial instrument. I did not use their names. I did not name the college. I just wrote about the hollow ache of achieving something great and having no one to share it with because you forgot to pay the admission fee for their love. I posted it on a popular forum for relationship advice and shut my laptop. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was hot to the touch. The notification count was in the thousands. I opened the post and scrolled. My breath caught in my throat. "This is my life." One comment read, "My parents charged a vacation to Disney World on my card when I was in boot camp. I thought I was the only one." Another said, "I am 40 years old and I'm still paying off my mother's gambling debts." The Empty Chair Club. Someone else wrote, "We are members for life." It was not just a viral post. It was a bloodletting. I had tapped into a silent epidemic of financial abuse. I spent the next 3 days reading every single comment. I replied to some, offering not sympathy, but strategy. Freeze your credit. I wrote, "Document the timeline. Do not be afraid to file a police report." A week later, I received a direct message from a verified account. It was Evelyn Price, a career counselor and author whose books I had read in college. "Eva," the message read, "she must have figured out who I was from the specific details of my job change. I saw your post. The way you analyze the emotional data is incredible. I am hosting a workshop next month called Financial Boundaries for High Achievers. I want you to speak." "I am not a speaker," I typed back. "I am just a data analyst who got robbed." "That is exactly why you need to speak," she replied. "You treated your trauma like a data set. You solved it. People need to see the math." I accepted. Standing on that stage in a hotel conference room, wearing a suit I had bought with my signing bonus, was harder than facing the police. I looked out at 50 faces, mostly young professionals, some older, and I saw the same tired look in their eyes that I used to see in the mirror. I did not give a motivational speech. I pulled up a PowerPoint presentation. "This is a graph of my income versus my family's requests for money over 6 years," I said, pointing to the laser pointer at the screen. The red line, requests, tracked perfectly with the blue line, my overtime pay. Notice the correlation. Love does not look like a transaction graph. If your relationship has a return on investment column, it is not a relationship, it is a business deal. And it is a bad one. I saw pens moving furiously. I saw people nodding. I saw a young man in the front row wiping his eyes. After the session, I stayed for an hour answering questions. I was not playing the saint. I was not trying to be a guru. I was just giving them the tools Noah and Renee had given me. I was handing out flashlights to people stuck in the dark. Of course, the light eventually reached the shadows where my family lived. 2 days after the workshop, the text started. Someone, probably a neighbor or a distant cousin, had seen a clip of my talk on social media. I had not mentioned their names, but the story was specific enough. Mom, how dare you? After everything we did for you, you are shaming this family in front of strangers. You are making us look like monsters. Dad, I am talking to a lawyer. This is defamation. You better take that video down or I will sue you for every penny of that new salary. Dylan, you think you are so special now? You are just a sellout. Everyone knows you are lying. I sat in my office at Crescent Ridge, looking at the messages. My heart rate did not spike. My palms did not sweat. I took a screenshot. I opened my email. I attached the screenshot. I typed Noah's email address in the recipient field. Subject: violation of cease and desist/continued harassment. Body: Noah. Please add this to the file. I am not responding to them. Please remind their counsel that truth is an absolute defense against defamation. I hit send. I did not block them. I did not argue. I did not try to explain that I was helping people. I simply processed the data. They were noise. I was the signal. I picked up my coffee, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. The sun was reflecting off the glass of the skyscrapers, creating a blinding, beautiful wall of light. I was not hiding in the dark anymore. And for the first time, I realized that the 3 empty chairs at my graduation were the best gift they had ever given me. They had given me the space to stand on my own. The chandeliers in the grand ballroom of the Hyatt Regency were terrifyingly bright. They hung like clusters of frozen fireworks above the heads of 500 industry leaders, tech innovators, and the senior partners of Crescent Ridge Analytics. I stood in the wings of the stage, smoothing the fabric of the navy blue silk dress I had bought for this specific night. This was the Rising Star Gala, the single most important networking event of the fiscal year, and I was the closing speaker. My speech was memorized. It was a tight, 15-minute presentation on predictive modeling and volatile markets. It was safe. It was professional. It was exactly what a woman in her 20s trying to erase a chaotic past should say. I checked my watch. It was 7:45. I was up in 3 minutes. Then, the heavy velvet curtain to my left rippled. The head of security for the event, a man named Marcus, whom I had briefed specifically upon my hiring, stepped into my personal space. His face was grim. "Eva," he whispered, his voice cutting through the ambient hum of the string quartet playing out front. "We have a situation in the lobby. 3 individuals. They are demanding to see you. They are making a scene." My blood ran cold, turning into slush in my veins. But my mind? My mind lit up like a server room coming online. I had run the probability models on this. I knew the likelihood of them showing up to sabotage my big moment was high. "Is it an older man, an older woman pretending to be faint, and a young man with a phone?" I asked. Marcus nodded. "Affirmative. The man is shouting about you abandoning a dying parent." I closed my eyes for 1 second. Just one. I inhaled the scent of the expensive lilies on the podium and exhaled the smell of stale beer and desperation that used to cling to my childhood home. "Let them in," I said. Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" "Let them into the back of the room," I instructed, my voice steady. "If you block them in the lobby, they are just noise. If they come in here, they are evidence. But keep the cameras rolling, and have your team ready to escort them out on my signal." Marcus looked at me with a mixture of confusion and awe, then tapped his earpiece. "Let them through. Calculated risk." I walked out onto the stage. The applause was polite, warm. I approached the podium, arranged my index cards, and looked out at the sea of faces. I saw my boss, the CEO, smiling in the front row. Then the double doors at the back of the ballroom slammed open. It was theatrical. It was loud. It was exactly the kind of chaos they thrived on. "There she is!" My father's voice boomed, bouncing off the acoustic tiles. He was wearing a suit that was 2 sizes too big, looking disheveled and frantic. There is the daughter who left her mother to die." The room went deadly silent. 500 heads turned. Mom was leaning heavily on Dad, clutching her chest, gasping for air like she was in the final stages of consumption. Behind them, Dylan was holding his phone high, the flashlight beam cutting through the dim light of the dining area, filming everything. "Ava!" Dad shouted, marching down the center aisle. "You ungrateful wretch! You stand there in your fancy dress while your family starves? While your mother needs surgery?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw the CEO's smile vanish. I saw confusion on the faces of my colleagues. This was it. This was their nuclear option. They wanted to shame me into submission, to destroy my reputation so I would have no choice but to crawl back to them. I did not shrink. I did not step back from the microphone. I leaned into it. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice amplified and booming, drowning out my father's rant. "I apologize for the interruption." Dad stopped walking. He looked confused. He expected me to be crying by now. "What you are witnessing," I continued, my tone cool and analytical, "is not a family emergency. It is a violation of a court-mandated restraining order regarding financial fraud and identity theft." The room gasped. It was a collective intake of breath that sucked the air out of the ballroom. "The 3 individuals causing this disturbance are currently under investigation for opening fraudulent credit lines in my name," I said, pointing a steady finger at them. "They are here because I cut off their access to my bank account 3 months ago." Dylan lowered his phone slightly. Mom stopped gasping. The narrative had been hijacked, and they knew it. "Security," I said calmly. "Please remove them." Marcus and 4 uniformed officers materialized from the shadows like sharks. They flanked my family instantly. "You cannot touch me!" Dad screamed. But his voice cracked. It was the sound of a bully losing his playground. "She is lying. She is a liar." "Sir, you are trespassing," Marcus said loud enough for the front row to hear. As they were being herded toward the exit, I saw Dylan make his move. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He tried to shove it onto a waiter's tray, probably hoping it would find its way to the CEO. A packet of lies. Fake medical bills, maybe a forged letter about how I abused them. "Officer," I said into the mic, "please secure the envelope the man in the gray jacket just attempted to discard. That is evidence of extortion." Dylan froze. The security guards snatched the envelope. The doors swung shut behind them. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with shock. I looked down at my index cards. Predictive modeling in volatile markets. It felt ridiculous. It felt small. I picked up the stack of cards. I looked at the audience. And then, slowly, deliberately, I tore the cards in half. I dropped the pieces on the podium. "I was going to talk to you tonight about market volatility," I said. "But honestly, you can read that in my white paper. Instead, I want to talk about the volatility of the human element in finance. I want to talk about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect your assets become your biggest liability." I saw the CEO lean forward. I saw the room lock in. I spoke for 20 minutes. I did not use jargon. I did not use buzzwords. I told them about the 3 empty chairs. I told them about the credit notification that dinged while I was holding my diploma. I told them about the 3 a.m. pounding on the door. I spoke about the specific, isolating shame of being a high achiever who is secretly being bled dry by the people they love. "We talk about financial literacy in this industry," I concluded, my voice shaking slightly for the first time. "But we rarely talk about financial defense. We assume everyone starts at 0. Some of us start at -50,000, digging ourselves out of a hole our parents dug for us. And the bravest thing you can do is not just climb out, but fill the hole in so they cannot push you back down." I stepped back from the podium. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then, one person in the back stood up, then another, then a whole table. The sound of the applause was different from the polite clapping at the start. It was a roar. It was a thunderclap of solidarity. People were not clapping for a victim. They were clapping for a survivor who had just killed the monster in plain sight. I walked off stage. My hands were trembling, but my head was high. Marcus met me in the wings. "We got the footage," he said. "High definition, audio and video, and the envelope contains a fake police report accusing you of elder abuse. It is fraudulent government documents. Eva, that is a felony." "Good," I said. I went to the green room to collect my purse. Sitting there, looking uncomfortable on a floral sofa, was a man in a cheap suit holding a briefcase. I recognized him from the files Noah had shown me. It was their lawyer, the one they had hired with money they probably borrowed from a loan shark. He stood up when I entered. He looked nervous. He had heard the applause. He knew the wind had changed. "Ms. Evans," he said, forcing a smile that looked like a grimace. "Quite a performance out there." "It wasn't a performance," I said, pouring myself a glass of water. "It was a deposition." He cleared his throat. "Look, your father is very upset, but he is willing to de-escalate. We think we can come to an arrangement. If you agree to drop the restraining order and maybe assist with some of the outstanding medical bills your mother has, they are willing to forget this whole defamation issue." He opened his briefcase. "We can settle this tonight. Keep it out of the courts. Family matters should be private, don't you think?" I looked at him. I looked at his cheap suit. I looked at the sweat beading on his upper lip. He was used to scaring people. He was used to daughters who just wanted the yelling to stop. I took a sip of water. I smiled. It was a shark's smile. "You want to settle?" I asked. "Ideally," he said, relaxing slightly. "I have been waiting for you to say that," I said, "because my lawyer, Noah Grayson, is currently filing a motion to add tonight's incident to the civil suit, and with the footage of my brother planting fake evidence and my father violating a protective order in front of 500 witnesses, including 3 judges who are guests tonight, I don't think we will be settling." The color drained from his face. "I don't want privacy," I said. Stepping closer to him, "I want a precedent. Tell my father I will see him in court, and tell him to wear a better suit." I walked out of the green room, leaving him standing there with his open briefcase. The gala was still roaring outside, but the real party was just beginning. The trap was sprung, and they had walked right into it. The adrenaline from the gala had barely subsided when the first crack in their defense appeared. It came from an unlikely source. 2 days after I walked off that stage, I received an email on my secure server. The subject line was simply, "Regarding the Super Bowl party." The sender was listed as Coach Randall. I knew the name. Everyone in my old neighborhood knew Coach Randall. He was the jovial, loud man who hosted the neighborhood block parties and the annual Super Bowl bash that my parents treated like a religious pilgrimage. He was supposed to be their friend, their ally. He asked to meet, not at a law office, but at a diner on the edge of the city, halfway between my old life and my new one. I went, but I did not go alone. I had a private investigator sat 2 booths away, filming. I was done taking risks. Coach Randall looked smaller than I remembered. He was nursing a black coffee, his eyes darting around the room. When I sat down, he did not smile. He looked like a man who was trying to offload a heavy backpack before he drowned. "I saw the video," he said, his voice low. "From the gala. It is all over the local Facebook groups." "It was not meant to be viral," I said, unfolding my napkin. "It was meant to be the truth. Your dad—" Randall paused, rubbing his face with a hand that shook slightly. "He told everyone you were crazy. He told everyone you had a breakdown and stole his retirement money. He has been spinning that story for years. Eva, every time he lost a bet, he blamed you." I froze. "Lost a bet?" Randall sighed, reaching into his jacket. "The Super Bowl party? It isn't just nachos and beer. Eva, it is a book. I run a small pool, nothing major, just neighborhood stuff." "But your dad and Dylan? They bet big. They bet stupid. And for the last 5 years, they have been covering their losses with cash they said came from Eva's special fund." He slid a thick envelope across the table. "I am getting out of the game," he said. "Too much heat now, and I don't want to be an accessory to whatever felony they are cooking up. This is for you. I opened the envelope. Inside were photocopies. There were betting slips with my father's signature. There were "IOUS" scrawled on napkins. But the most damaging evidence was a printout of a group chat named the Winner Circle. I scanned the messages. My stomach turned. "Dylan, put me down for 500 on the spread. I just got the approval for the new card." Randall, "You sure? That is steep." Dad, "Do it. The limit is 10 grand. Just open more credit. Eva won't dare report it. She is too soft." I stared at the sentence. Eva won't dare report it. It was not just theft. It was calculated predation. They had banked on my love, my guilt, and my silence as part of their business model. They had weaponized my softness. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked, looking up at him. "Because I have a daughter too," Randall said, standing up. "And if I ever did to her what they did to you, I hope someone would put me in jail." He left a $20 bill on the table and walked out. I drove straight to Noah's office. When I showed him the chat log, he did not look shocked. He looked like a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. "This is it," Noah said, tapping the paper. "This takes it from civil dispute to criminal conspiracy. This proves premeditation. They discussed the crime. They acknowledged the victim's likely reaction. And they proceeded." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We file the civil suit for full restitution," Noah said, his voice crisp. "And then we attach this file and send it to the district attorney. But first, we see if they want to hang themselves completely." We sent a formal notification to their lawyer that we had new evidence regarding the nature of the debts. We did not specify what it was. We just let them sweat. The reaction was instant. The bluster from the gala vanished. The threats of defamation suits evaporated. Suddenly, my phone was lighting up with a different tone. "Mom, Eva, baby, please, we need to talk. Mother to daughter, no lawyers, just us. I miss you. Dad, I can pay you back. I have a plan. Just give me time. Do not ruin the family name over money. Dylan." It wasn't my idea. Dad made me do it. Coach Randall pressured me. They were scrambling. They were turning on each other. "They want a meeting," Noah told me the next day. "They are begging for a settlement conference." "I will meet them," I said. "But not at a coffee shop. Here, in your conference room, with a court reporter." "Ava, you don't have to," Noah warned. "I can handle it." "No," I said. "I need to look them in the eye one last time. I need to see them when they know they have lost." The meeting was set for Friday afternoon. They arrived 10 minutes early. My mother looked 10 years older than she had at the gala. She was wearing a modest dress, no jewelry, trying to project the image of a humble, wronged matriarch. Dad refused to look at me. Dylan sat in the corner, chewing his fingernails. Noah sat beside me. A court reporter sat at the end of the table, her fingers hovering over the stenotype machine. A video camera blinked in the corner. "This is a formal settlement discussion," Noah announced. "Everything said here is on the record." "Eva," Mom started, her voice trembling. She reached across the polished mahogany table. Trying to grab my hand, I pulled it back. "Please, we are family. We made mistakes. The party, we just wanted to be happy. We didn't mean to hurt you. You opened a credit card in my name on the day of my graduation," I said. My voice was not loud. It was deadly quiet. "You skipped the ceremony to gamble with money you stole from me." "It was not gambling," Dad snapped, unable to help himself. "It was an investment. We were going to double it and pay you back." "With interest," Mom added quickly. "We were doing it for you. Eva, we wanted to surprise you with a big check." "Is that so?" Noah asked, sliding a piece of paper forward. "Because according to the timeline, you spent $4,000 on electronics and another $2,000 on a party tab. I don't see any investments." "We were confused," Mom cried, tears streaming down her face now. "I am not good with technology. I didn't know what I was clicking. I thought it was my account. The bank makes it so confusing." I watched her. I watched the performance. It was good. It was almost convincing. She was playing the confused Elderly victim perfectly. You didn't know it was my account? I asked softly. No, Mom insisted, shaking her head vigorously. I thought it was linked to your father's credit. I would never use yours. I don't even know your information. Really? I leaned forward. So you didn't know the login? Never, she sobbed. I don't even know how to use the app. Then how did you bypass the security question? I asked. The bank flagged the account because the security question was answered correctly on the first try. It was, what was the name of your first stuffed animal? The room went silent. Mom blinked. Her tears stopped instantly. Her eyes darted to Dad, then to me. Well, she stammered, I guessed. It was Mr. Fluffles. Everyone knows that. I never had a stuffed animal named Mr. Fluffles, I said. That was your childhood toy. Mom, I set that security question answer to Blueberry when I was 12 because I liked the fruit. But when the account was accessed on February 10th, the answer given was Blueberry. I paused. But here's the thing. Mom, I never told you that answer. The only place that answer existed was on a piece of paper I kept in my diary. The diary you swore you never read. Mom's face went pale. She had walked right into it. She had just admitted she didn't know the answer, which meant she couldn't have guessed it, which meant she had stolen the information years ago and saved it for this exact moment. And, I continued, delivering the final blow, the account recovery email used to reset the password, it wasn't Dad's, it wasn't yours, it was evafamilyfund@gmail.com, an email address created 3 years ago. You didn't accidentally use my card last month. You have been planning to use my identity for 3 years. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Dad slumped in his chair. Dylan put his head in his hands. That email address, Noah said, looking at the opposing counsel, is linked to your client's IP address. We checked. The opposing lawyer closed his folder. He looked at my parents with disgust. He realized he hadn't just been hired to defend a debt case, he had been hired to defend a long-con fraud. I think we are done here, Noah said. We will see you at the criminal hearing. Wait, Mom screamed, lunging forward. Ava, you can't do this. I am your mother. I stood up. I looked down at the woman who had given me life, and then spent the rest of it trying to bill me for the favor. I know, I said, and that is the only reason I am not asking for jail time today. But if you ever contact me again, if you ever mention my name, if you ever try to open so much as a library card with my information, I will hand that diary and those chat logs to the police, and I won't look back. I walked out of the conference room. Behind me, the sound of my mother's wailing did not make me sad. It sounded like a ghost fading into the distance. I walked into the lobby, where the sun was streaming through the glass doors. I checked my phone. A notification from my bank popped up. Direct deposit received. It was my paycheck, all of it, mine. I smiled and pushed open the heavy glass doors. Stepping out into the fresh air, the courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. A scent that was strangely comforting compared to the suffocating perfume of my mother or the scent of stale beer that usually clung to my father. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Noah, my hands folded on top of a thick binder of evidence. Across the aisle, my family sat huddled with their lawyer, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else on earth. We were not just here for the money. We were here for the permanent order of protection. I wanted a legal wall between my future and their past. My father took the stand first. He tried to play the role of the benevolent patriarch, the man who had given his all for an ungrateful child. He wore a tie that I recognized. I had bought it for him 3 Father's Days ago. Your Honor, he said, his voice booming with false gravitas. We are a traditional family. We believe in supporting each other. Eva was raised with the best of everything. We put food on the table. We put clothes on her back. Is it a crime to expect a little help when the parents who sacrificed for you fall on hard times? She acts like we stole from her, but she owes us. It is the cost of raising a child. Noah stood up slowly. He did not raise his voice. He simply projected a slide onto the screen behind the witness stand. "Mr. Evans," Noah said, "you claim you paid for Eva's education and upbringing. However, Exhibit C shows bank statements from the years 2018 through 2024. Can you explain why the tuition payments to Blue Ridge Evening College were made from a checking account solely in Eva's name? And can you explain why there are 42 separate transfers from Eva to your account labeled rent during the years she lived in your basement?" Dad stammered. "Well, we helped in other ways." "And the loans?" Noah pressed. "Here is a list of 19 documented instances where you borrowed money for emergencies ranging from car repairs to medical bills. None of these were repaid. In fact, the total comes to over $12,000. It seems Eva has already paid for her upbringing." "Sir, twice over." Dad turned red. He looked at the judge, then at me. He didn't see a daughter anymore. He saw a ledger that wouldn't balance. Next was Dylan. He tried a different tactic. He slumped in the chair, trying to look like a confused kid who got caught up in something he didn't understand. "It was just a misunderstanding," Dylan mumbled into the microphone. "I thought Eva said it was okay to use the card. We talk about stuff like that all the time. I didn't know she would get so mad. I mean, we are siblings." "A misunderstanding," Noah repeated. He played the video from the night of the gala. The room watched in high definition as Dylan tried to plant the fake evidence envelope on the waiter's tray. Then Noah played the audio from the 3 a.m. apartment raid. "I will tell everyone what kind of daughter you are." Dylan's voice screamed from the recording. "You act like you are so rich." "That does not sound like a brother who is confused," Noah noted dryly. "That sounds like a co-conspirator who is angry that the bank vault has been locked." But the real blow came when the bailiff called Coach Randall. My parents stiffened. They had not expected him to actually show up. They thought the brotherhood of the Super Bowl party would protect them. Randall sat in the witness chair, looking miserable but determined. He swore to tell the truth. "Mr. Randall," Noah asked, "can you tell the court about the nature of the Super Bowl party on February 10th? "It is a betting pool," Randall said, his voice quiet. "A high-stakes pool. We run it every year." "And did the defendants participate?" "Yes," Randall nodded. "Heavily. They were down about $6,000 from the regular season. They told me not to worry. They said they had a new line of credit coming through. They called it the Eva card." The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose, looked up sharply. "The Eva card?" "Yes, Your Honor," Randall said, looking at his hands. "They laughed about it. They said she was too soft to check her statements. They said the graduation was the perfect distraction because she would be too busy celebrating to notice the alerts." A gasp rippled through the small gallery. It was the smoking gun. The tradition they claimed was so important that they couldn't miss it was actually a scheduled robbery of their own daughter. My mother was the last to try to salvage the ship. She took the stand, weeping before she even sat down. "I don't know about any of this," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I am just a mother who loves her babies. I am not good with computers. I don't know how to open emails or credit cards. My husband handles the money. I just wanted my family to be together. I was pressured. I didn't know." Noah walked to the table and picked up a single piece of paper. It was the transcript from the settlement meeting, certified by the court reporter. "Mrs. Evans," Noah said, "in a recorded meeting on February 14th, you admitted that the security question for the fraudulent account was Blueberry. You admitted that this answer came from Eva's childhood diary. You also accessed the verification email from an address created on your personal iPad. The IP address matches your home router. The recovery email was Eva Family Fund. Did you create that email address?" I. Mom looked around the room for an exit. "I might have set it up years ago. For savings?" "For savings?" Noah raised an eyebrow. "Then why was the only activity on that email account a series of credit limit increase requests sent to 4 different banks over the last 3 years?" She froze. The tech-illiterate mask crumbled. She wasn't a victim of technology. She was a predator who used it to hunt. The judge had heard enough. She didn't even retire to her chambers. She stacked her papers and looked down at my family with an expression of pure disdain. "In 20 years on the bench," the judge said, her voice cutting through the room, "I have seen strangers steal from strangers, but to see parents treat their child like a disposable resource is a special kind of tragedy. The evidence is overwhelming, the intent was malicious, and the lack of remorse is staggering." She banged the gavel. It was the best sound I had ever heard. "I am granting the permanent restraining order. The defendants are to have no contact with the plaintiff, direct or indirect, for a period of 10 years. I am ordering full restitution of the $4,800 charged to the card, plus legal fees. Furthermore, I am forwarding the transcript of this trial and the evidence of identity theft to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. This court is adjourned." The air in the room changed instantly. It was lighter. The heavy gray cloud that had followed me since graduation day evaporated. I stood up and hugged Noah. "Thank you," I whispered. "You did the work, Ava," he said. "I just presented it." I turned to leave. My parents were arguing with their lawyer, who was packing his briefcase with the speed of a man fleeing a sinking ship. Mom looked up and saw me. She broke away from the huddle. She didn't run at me this time. She just stood there, looking small and defeated. "Ava," she called out. Her voice was not angry anymore. It was desperate. "Ava, please, where are we supposed to go? The police are going to come. I just want you to come home. We can fix this. Mama just wants you to come home." I stopped. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the last time. I saw the fear in her eyes, but I also saw the calculation. She didn't want me. She wanted the buffer. She wanted the person who fixed things. "I am not coming home. Mom," I said, my voice steady and clear, "because I don't have a home with you, and I will never go back to a place where I'm used as a wallet." I turned my back on her. I walked down the center aisle. Pushing through the double doors, the sunlight outside the courthouse was blinding. It hit my face, warm and real. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with air that felt mine. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Maya. "Maya, I heard from Noah. You won. Dinner tonight? I am buying, but I know you can afford it now. Miss Big Shot." I smiled. It was a genuine smile, one that reached my eyes. There was no bitterness left. There was no anger, just space, beautiful, empty space, where the guilt used to be. "Eva, I am in, but I am picking the place, and I am paying." 2 weeks later, I stood in my new office at Crescent Ridge. I had just been promoted to lead a new project on fraud detection algorithms. On the wall behind my desk, I hung my diploma. It was framed in black wood, simple and elegant. Next to it, I taped a small, handwritten note on a piece of cream-colored stationery. "Boundaries are the highest form of self-love." My computer dinged. It was an email from a stranger. A young girl named Chloe had found my blog post about the 3 empty chairs. "Dear Eva." The email read, "My parents just asked me to co-sign a loan for a car they don't need. They said I am selfish if I say no. I feel so guilty. Am I a bad daughter?" I sat down at my keyboard. I didn't hesitate. "Dear Chloe," I typed, "you are not selfish. You are awake. The guilt you feel is just the interest they programmed you to pay. Close the account. Save yourself." I pressed send. I spun my chair around and looked out the window at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in gold and violet. I was alone in my office, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't lonely. I had 3 empty chairs in my heart where my family used to be. But that was okay. I finally had the freedom to decide who was worthy enough to sit in them. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please leave a comment below with your city or country, and let's chat. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about overcoming toxic families and finding your strength, please subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel. Like this video, and smash that hype button to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it.